It sounds like if you guys are looking for a man in finance with a trust fund and blue eyes, this is the guy.
I'll stay in Amazon for a year, and then I just decided to go into the world of startups. I think my main concept in regards to privilege is you have the opportunity to take risk. For example, your dad is in whatever, oil and gas.
Hi, Dad.
They are afraid that their kids are gonna damage their reputation.
Everybody thinks that I'm a bitch.
She also forgot my name 3 times. Oh, girls only want guys who are wealthy. No, most of the girls just want a guy who's ambitious.
I'm currently going through a breakup.
Okay, do you want to see my bank account?
Hey guys, so I'm so happy to introduce you to our guest today, who is actually the first friend I'm interviewing. You've already seen him in our birthday vlogs, and welcome, Vlad.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So this is my friend who is probably the guy who I'm looking up to the most, even though you're just 24, Vlad. We've been friends for how long now?
10, 12?
10 years.
Yeah, something like that.
And somehow we managed to stay friends. So do you remember how we met?
I don't, but I do remember that I got introduced to you multiple times and you couldn't remember my name. I do remember that.
Yes, Vlad, by the way, is also from Ukraine, and the way how we kind of found out who we are is because both of us went to international schools. So once you graduated from LSE, you started working at Amazon, is that right?
Yeah.
And how was that experience? Did you want to work at the big corporation?
So when I was in uni, I was under the assumption that, oh, I'm gonna be like Mark Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs. And in LSE, there is so much pressure for you to go into investment banking to the extent where people would ask you, do you have an internship for summer? And I'm like, not yet. And they're like, oh, how could you? And there is so much judgment that's insane. And they really hated that whole culture. So I was like, okay, investment banking off the list. What's next? So I went basically exploring different careers, and I found out about, a career in tech back in, obviously back in the days. But I knew that for, whatever reason, I didn't want to be an engineer, so I didn't apply for computer science. So hence, how do I get a career in tech from like economics, managerial, financial background? And I started looking into it more and more, and I realized that one of the steps to get there is a career in big tech. Mm-hmm. So big tech, or FANG, now I guess FANG, it's basically Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, or Google. And I started applying there. Obviously, these are just 5, 6 companies. So I applied to plenty of companies, and I remember I had like a spreadsheet, and I was just applying everywhere. I think at some point it was like 150 applications. And to be honest, Amazon was just the first one that responded, and they invited me for an interview. And I remember when I got the interview letter, I was like, this is a scam. No way it's happening. Because previously I applied to hundreds of applications and I didn't get anything, literally zero. And so when I got my letter from Amazon, I just prepared as much as I could for the interview. I was talking to that recruiter after, and she's like, you aced it. The interview was great. And I did prepare for the whole week. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just preparing for the interview. It was quite simple. And
what position was it for?
So it was a graduate program in basically in business development. And I got into, my role was basically working with different brands that sell on Amazon Marketplace, which was, I guess, fun to an extent, but...
You say fun with such a disgust on your face.
Yeah, it's like, the main issue is that Amazon Marketplace is an established massive business, but their business is retail mostly, right? Yes, you sell via website, but you sell a bunch of like physical goods. And I didn't really want to work with physical goods. And also, just because it's such an established business, and Amazon, I think, employs like millions of people, it wasn't just fun, to be honest. And fun in terms of like, there wasn't much stuff to do. Most of the people were working 9 to 5. And I respect that, good for you if that's what you want to do. But I realized that, I'm 21, 22, and I'm kind of wasting my life here. Yeah, so then I was like, okay, I'll stay in Amazon for a year, which I did. And then I just decided to go into the world of startups.
And it's game time.
So what do you want me to do? Just open it up?
Open it up and let's take it one by one. What was your first impression of me?
Okay, so the first impression of you. Oh, remember actually, you were posting a lot on Ask.fm.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you were.
There was an era, guys.
Yeah, and so my first impression of you, I mean, not gonna lie, it was a bit bitchy, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
You thought that I'm a bitch? Everybody thinks that I'm a bitch.
She also forgot my name 3 times, like, yeah, so that was my first impression, but then I really got to know you.
Yeah, they're not asking about that part.
Okay, yeah, bitchy.
Okay, great. So he actually has a meeting after this because yesterday we went to have dinner and he asked me, is it okay if I have a meeting at 11:30? I'm like, isn't the boat thing at 10? He's like, yeah, but we finish at 11 and then I'll have a meeting at 11:30.
Yeah. Efficiency 101. Well, I do love the surf also because it's like the art of struggle. Like I was trying to do 360 for a few times now. Still can't, but I think it's you know, you practice, you show up, and then you're gonna do it. So yeah. But if you want to see more of my surf activity, follow my Instagram here.
So how did your startup journey begin?
A friend of mine, he joined a startup really early in December of 2021, and we were just keeping up with each other. And then he was in Lisbon, and he called me once, and we were just talking, and then he's like, "Hey, do you want to come to Lisbon this weekend?" And I was like, "You know what? Let's do it." So then, you know, I booked the flight maybe the next day. I flew to Lisbon, and I met him, and I saw him, and I met the startup team, and I just.
He was already in the startup, right?
Yeah. So he was there for like 7-8 months, and I just seen like a bunch of young people working a lot, like, you know, sometimes 10, 12, 13, whatever, 14 hours, and they were excited, right? And then even when they were not working, they would talk about work, but it would be exciting, right? And I love tech, and it's like basically the startup is like a sort of in between finance and tech, right? So we would talk about it, I would engage as well to a certain part here and there. And I was like, damn, this is so cool. Like, I really want to do that. And then I started talking more and more to the team. And a friend of mine just said, hey, do you want to, like, I'll add you to our Slack channel. And Slack is like a messenger for various teams. Do you just want to, you know, talk there and maybe help us out? And I was like, sure. So I was still working in Amazon, but at the same time I was contributing to the startup. And then once my year in Amazon finished, so I think it was the end of 2022, they actually had a position opened up in one of the departments. And they're like, yo, we need someone like you. You want to join? I was like, hell yeah. So I left Amazon. Obviously, like for me, I had the privilege, right? Because I remember talking to my parents and my dad, and he was like, of course, what do you mean do it? Just because, you know, now I have this privilege, I have this opportunity now, so yeah, let's do it. Well, if it fails, things happen. But at the same time, I know that if it fails, I have, you know, sort of like I have a second or third or whatever chance just because of the opportunities that my parents gave me.
Yeah, I think that's the best part about the privilege, to have this safety net to take risks, as you were saying.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's very difficult to take risks without safety net. Obviously, there is then another sort of like part of the scope is that you don't have the incentives to take risks just because, you know, you're in this safety net. But then I think it comes down to your upbringing, right? I think, you know, despite how rich you are, how rich your family is, it's not healthy to provide everything for the kids just because, you know, when a kid is like 25, he's flying private, he's got a new whip, a new, apartment in New York, London, whatever. Why would he strive for something, right? What's the incentive for him? So I think that's a bit too much.
But I think many people would look at you and they would also think like, why are you even doing this when you have your life pretty much set up? What is your internal desire to have this startup and to achieve things?
I mean, it might sound naive, but I really I just like building things, I just like when, obviously it's not physical building, I'm not building like rockets like on spaceships like Elon Musk, but when, there was nothing first, you come up with an idea, you get a bunch of developers and whatever designers, you implement it, and then something is born. Mm-hmm. It's just exciting. And maybe, and ideally, when this something solves someone else's problem, that's like perfect, right? So if you can provide value to people and solve their problem, and at the same time they will pay for this solution, this is great. And I think this is the way that I was brought up. Maybe the books I've read, like there is a very famous book by, I think it's called in English, The Atlant Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And one of the characters, that's his whole premise, is like, I am creating value, I'm solving someone's problem, I'm providing a need, and people pay for it. They are comfortable paying for it. This is like the premise of free markets and capitalism. And I think this is just cool and exciting. And I also was always looking up to people like Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Travis Kalanick, like so many entrepreneurs that built this world that we live in. And I was like, I want to contribute to a certain extent.
Just so our audience understands why I said in the beginning that I look up to Vlad a lot, is because we have obviously a lot of privileged friends. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, my friends, but 90% of them don't really work. And it's almost considered normal not to work or have this illusion of working. And I never understood that because, as you were saying, when you have so much opportunity to take risks, why don't you want to do that?
Yeah, and I think just do whatever you want to do. But I'm pretty sure I have this whole concept that any person in this world can be good in something. There is something for you, right? Whether it's fashion, whether that's film, whether that's, finance or any other industry in the world. There is something for you. If you do come from privilege, you have the opportunity to take risk and just be whoever you want to be. But at the same time, I think it's also because there is kind of the aforementioned issue that people just don't have incentives. And I've seen it myself. I do have friends that are very privileged, and I think it's too privileged in the sense that maybe it's because of their upbringing, maybe for other reasons, but they just don't want to create new thing, right? And this production that you have, it's a new thing, and right, obviously you talked about it a lot that you have the privilege to do it, but at the same time you take this leap, you take this, the cringe that people have of watching their shows in front of you or whatever. Yeah. You take the step.
I think there is also another thing which a lot of people don't mention, and it's the fear that you were brought up with this privilege, maybe unlike your parents, but you will never outperform them. And that's why so many people, because they're scared that they will not outperform their parents, they choose just not to do anything.
I do think this is an issue, and I think what has helped, I'm not sure if I'm in the same situation, but a lot of people, is to go into a completely different industry than their parents, right? Their parents are in industry X, well, you do something completely polar opposite, where your parents are not linked whatsoever. And you'll always know that whatever you got through your own connections. Yes, obviously, your parents just being there and providing the opportunities is still a massive layup, but at the same time, you know that everything you got in this particular industry was just you being yourself.
I think this is such a good point, because what makes me feel comfortable doing media production is because my parents are in completely different field of business. And I always thought that like maybe long term, if it goes well, it can become a part, like a daughter company of my dad's business. So I thought that like it's kind of like your duty to expand this business.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's just very important to understand that, like, yes, your parents, you know, work in whatever industry they do, and there are also a lot of people that would continue in their path and maybe expand the empire, and like you can see that historically. Yet, you know, maybe you, for example, your dad is in whatever, oil and gas, I call it the industry in like the post CIS region, right? So you're like, okay, I really hate that industry, but I am really good, or I really love art, or you really
So I'm gonna launder money.
Exactly. Or you love music, right? You just have to take that risk. A lot of parents as well, they are afraid that their kids are gonna damage their reputation. For example.
Oh, that's such a good point. I haven't thought about it.
Yeah, for example, like if your parents are in an established industry and they have a big name, whatever, and then their kids, I don't know, launching something. It doesn't even matter what it is, like music, art, production, it could be even a startup, right? At first it's gonna suck because everything sucks in the beginning. You suck, you don't know anything, right?
Exactly.
Right? You're a young person trying things. But you're gonna get better over time just by this, it's like Lindy effect. The more that it exists, the higher chance that it's gonna exist more. So it's like you're gonna try more things, you're gonna improve. But some people are just afraid to try, and also their parents are like, come on, what are you doing? You know, get serious, like get into my business, whatever. I've never had this, but I know that I do know a few friends that have this pressure from their parent that like you either do something serious, and you know it's basically regarded by the parent, or you don't do anything at all, which I think is, you know, it's
almost abusive.
It is.
So you said that your parents have been supporting your decision to move to a startup.
Yeah.
So are they only supporting emotionally or financially as well?
So basically the way that we operate is we always raised capital from external investors. So we would raise initially, obviously I was just part of the kind of the startup already, so they raised funds previously. And then when we launched a new startup, we raised 2 financial rounds from external investors. And to be honest, these investors are cool venture capital funds in the US or in the West. And it's way better to get capital from them because they provide value in the industry. And then, yeah, so we would always raise money from external investors. So actually,
don't listen to them.
So yeah, the only way that my parents helped me is obviously just being there, and it's emotional support. And they are, and taking interest, I think that as well. When, you know, I would always tell my dad what's happening, and he would be like, damn, this is so cool. And like in general, my family. So yeah.
Do you take advices from them, or do you look at your relationship as mentorship, or it's completely separated from your work?
I think in terms of, well, there are many parts of work in general, no matter the industry that you're in, that are very similar, right? Just because it depends on it's basically relationships with other people. You have your own personal fears, or you have your own personal anxiety because things are always not always going well.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think kind of all work in the world is kind of similar. You know, yes, there are things and details and caveats, but in regards to like relationship with people, I do take the advice from my family. At the same time, obviously, like some technical advice in regards to whatever the technology is that we are building, I wouldn't go to my parents about it.
So I prepared a small gift for Vlad. Like actually, I didn't prepare it. I had it.
Okay.
It was mine. But
Okay.
because we were discussing that we share a lot of similarities,
Okay.
I thought that you would really like it as well.
Okay.
So you will have to explain it to our audience because
wow.
unfortunately it's in Russian. but I really loved it, and I think it's very us.
So it's a book by Friedrich Nietzsche, who is a philosopher, and the book is
In English, it's called Will of Power.
Will of Power, right?
Have you read it?
I actually haven't.
Okay, I'm glad.
Yeah, so it will be a pleasure.
I'm surprised I found a book which you haven't read yet.
Oh no, I'm not that good. But thank you so much. This means a lot. I would kiss you and hug you, but I'm all wet and shit. So. But yeah, thank you.
There's also a note there.
There is a note. Oh my god! Look at. It says, "To my friend and inspiration." This is just beautiful. Thank you so much, my friend.
So, it's been a few weeks since I saw you, and I realized that we didn't talk about mentors, and it's quite an important part of both of our journeys. So, can you tell me a little bit about your experience with mentors in startup world?
Well, my experience with mentors has been quite hectic. Initially, when I found out about the concept of mentors, I decided to reach out to this guy. He's a Ukrainian entrepreneur based in San Francisco, and I reached out to him with this open, honest message about, hey, I'm lost in this world. I think I'm smart. I'm going to this uni, but I would love some help or support from someone who has built a successful company. Would you want to be my mentor? And he never replied. He just liked my message, double tapped it, and that's it. Don't actually explicitly state or ask someone to become your mentor. It could work, but the people that I take as and actually value as mentors right now, I go to them for advice. I go to them when some shit hits the fan and you need to sort it out.
I think that's also the difference between startup culture and corporate, because in corporate it's almost normal to straight up ask somebody to be your mentor, but when you're in the real world, the approach is very different. And I think you actually told me that you recently have been working on a guide for this.
Over the past 6 years, I've had experience in both big tech and startups. I've seen startups that failed. I've seen startups that succeeded and got more than $1 billion in their market cap, so unicorns. And I've realized that I've had decent amount of experience that I could share with my younger self. And this is very important. I'm just 24 years old, and I'm not at Mark Zuckerberg level at all. But at the same time, when I was reading Mark's or Elon Musk's biography back in 2018, this just seemed so far, right? Yes, he's built a social network when he was 18. Well, I haven't. And what do I do? How do I find a startup that's actually where I can learn rather than, it's going to fail tomorrow? It's a lot of people that have this mentality that university, something happens, and you're happy, successful, rich, whatever you want. And the question is, okay, what is supposed to happen? What is this magic? And I've decided to just put it on paper and share it with the people. It's like a course. I believe it's quite practical. I've tried to make sure that it's as practical as it can be without all this Andrew Tate or basically the bullshit if you fall, stand up, or if you want to make money, hustle, hustle, hustle. I think a lot of people are just, especially the young ones, they're a bit lost. There are so many opportunities in this world. There are so many influencers. There are so many people showcasing their wealth. And they do have the question, okay, how do I get there? And my path was full of jobs, startups, corporate environments, university. It's a very standard path, right? I graduated uni. I did internships. Some of them were great. Some of them absolute failures. But it's a more practical guide, I believe, that I wish someone gave to me when I was 18.
Yeah, and I think that's what's missing on the market right now, because there is a lot of inspirational stuff and a lot of, as you were saying, Andrew Tate type of things. But where do you get some decent, honest advice? And that's what our audience is often asking us for. So we will be sharing this information with you guys, and Vlad is sharing a promo code with us, and you can also find it in the description. Do you feel like it's a part of a privilege that you don't want to stay in 9 to 5 because you kind of have a different example in front of your face when it comes to your family?
Yeah, I think so. I think my main concept in regards to privilege is you have the opportunity to take risk. And yes, you know, a lot of people view privilege in regards to basically things, right? Like different brands, affording different things, vacations, etc. And that's obviously a part of that. But I think most importantly in regards to the resource that your parents give you is obviously your education and the opportunities. And it seems to me that if you have the privilege and you're not taking risks and you're not taking opportunities, it's kind of a waste. And I think this is why I think Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, like Elon Musk, Bill Gates for sure. I think his dad was a minister. Please don't quote me on that, but I think they all came from at least well-established families. And my hypothesis is that once you cover all the basics, right, you don't have to worry about what you're going to eat tomorrow, right? You don't have to stress about the fact that, you know, your parents don't have any means. You don't have to worry about that. You know that your parents are going to be there to support you if your startup or your venture fails. So you go and take risks. And this is why I thought that, you know, I have the opportunity. Yes, you know, a career in Amazon sounds great, and you know, a lot of people would love to be in my place. And I realized that, well, these people can be in my place, and I'll go take risks just because I have this opportunity, and it's kind of dull not to take that risk.
So do you feel like it's almost your duty as a privileged person to create something?
Well, I don't want to like judge anyone, right? It's up to, you know, your own personal life. But I think if you have the privilege and I had this discussion with a friend of mine, and he wanted to be, we were talking about careers, and he said that he wants to go and work in a bank for 10, 12 years and become a MD, like managing director. And I was like, really? Like, you have all of this opportunity. Your parents gave you so much. Take risks, you know, be creative, you know, do whatever you want to do. But you're just gonna be, it's not like a waste of time, but at the same time, I think my theory is you have to do it, right? You have all this opportunity and you're kind of wasting this potential, I think. So, you know, it kind of is kind of similar to this concept of universal basic income that I don't really agree with it, but they say that if all the people in the world can and have all of the basically basic needs filtered out, and then you can be creative, you can achieve whatever you want. And I think this is kind of builds upon that, right? Just because us, if you know, the privileged kids, we have the opportunity, we have basic needs covered, so now we can do whatever we want and take risks and create value for society and make this world a better place. Yes, it sounds like too naive, whatever, but I think this is our responsibility. What do you think our most important similarity is?
I think that's why we're friends, because we have quite a few similarities. I think both of us are very disciplined and, not to brag, but pretty hardworking.
Yeah, and I think both of us are very ambitious. I think I would agree on all of these.
Yeah, I think that's why we understand each other pretty well, like on a deeper level, because we understand each other's like desires.
Yeah, I think we don't settle for mediocrity. What's the word? You get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we always strive for something better. And yeah, I love that about you.
I love that about you too.
Oh, so cute.
You see, we love the things about each other which we have ourselves, which makes us narcissists.
Love it. What lesson you took the longest to unlearn? Oh, unlearn.
I think I know it.
Go on.
So before, like in friendships and in romantic relationships, the things which I would expect from people were like, oh, like you're in this position and here's what you have to do, because this is what I would do.
Yeah.
And I would project what I would do, and I would be disappointed when people would choose a different route.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like lack of respect towards other people's characters, and
Yeah.
it's kind of the mentality, oh, I know better what you should do.
Absolutely.
And when you are a narcissist like we are, you always think that you know best. But I stopped this philosophy, and it made my friendships, and I would say romantic relationships, but there are none, much easier.
I think I would kind of build on that. It's the overall concept of expectations from other people. Just because, you know, you have it in friendships, romantic relationships, work as well. You assume that if these are your expectations, then everyone else has the same expectations. And the whole concept of, oh, I did this because I thought you wanted this, blah, blah, blah. But then most of the time, people think completely different things, and you cannot imagine. So the best way is to actually communicate, whether it's a friend, whether it's a romantic relationship, whether it's a partner in work, that hey, these are like the fundamental rules, whatever. This is what's happening. Yeah. So I think it took me a long time to learn.
So what's the end goal for you?
I want to contribute to building something that I think changes the world. Is a very obviously, I'm not smart enough to build the Neuralink, right? Like, I'm nowhere close to that, or, building artificial intelligence that's gonna help cure cancer. I don't think I'm up there, but at the same time, building various products that might solve like a small problem. For example, you no longer say, I'm gonna call a taxi. You say, I'm gonna call Uber, or I'm gonna WhatsApp you, or I'm gonna Google it, whatever. So the end game is to be part of a founding team that creates a company, a product turned into a company that now becomes just part of a household name. I think that would be ideal.
So you traveled and lived in so many places.
Yeah.
Where was the best dating experience?
Oh, hello. Well, obviously London, just because.
Elaborate.
Just because, I stayed there for 8 years of my life, or even a bit less, 7. Hence, this is where I had the most experience, I guess. Not gonna lie, the worst one so far has been in Dubai.
So I have a favorite story.
Go on.
Which you told me about your dating experience in Dubai.
Oh wow, yeah.
I want him to tell it so you understand maybe like the hypocrisy of relationships and how transactional they are in Dubai.
Don't just blame Dubai, I think. But yeah, I had...
Don't blame Dubai, blame
Okay.
women.
Yeah, no, don't blame women. Women are great, but it's just, there are outliers, let's say. So yeah, it was just a first date, and the girl was very, how should I say it? Let's say materialistic, right? So we went on a date to the spot, and I'm like, hey, what's good here? I've never been. And she's like, yeah, I have been here a few times. And she straight up went like caviar and lobsters. And I'm like, sure, maybe they do have like splendid caviar and lobsters, but this is just a very peculiar choice in an Italian restaurant, right? Like, with all due respect. Oh, we started talking about travel, right? And then she's like, oh, I really want to go to Monaco, Courchevel, Mykonos, all those places,
all of
right?
the best spots.
All the best spots. And like, yeah, she's asking like, oh, have you been there, blah, blah, blah. I really want to go there. And I'm like, maybe I have, but it's not the best place, like with all due respect. And I started asking, maybe there is a reason you want to go there. But it's all the reasons you could imagine. It's like, oh, but they have the best parties. I have this. And I was like, okay, this is pretty sad. Then she started asking me, I had a watch on. She was like, oh, what is this watch? And I'm like,
God,
whatever.
that's so cringe.
It was a gift. And she's like, oh, who is this gift from? And I'm like, chillax, don't worry about it. And then, the top notch was when she asked me how much do I pay for rent in Dubai, and like whether I live in my own apartment, do I rent, etc. And I was like, okay, do you want to see my bank account? Like,
She probably does.
And we never chatted ever since. I think she texted me, but I replied in a respectful, but in a manner like, hey, I'm genuinely not interested in this transactional relationship. Thank you. If I were, in Dubai, there are plenty of opportunities for that. I'm not a fan of that, so yeah.
Girls, if you're materialistic, at least be better at hiding this. You would go further.
Yeah, be smart.
So, how do you go on dates like this? Because when beautiful girls go on dates and guys start like complimenting like only their looks,
Yeah.
obviously they feel like kind of used.
Yeah.
Do you feel the same way when you go on dates like this, that they're only interested in your wealth rather than in you as a person, or it doesn't bother you?
I think there is like a level of filter that you can do prior to going on dates, which is obviously like Instagram is a big thing, as well as other social media. Firstly is, if she's a common friend, she's more likely to be of the same background, right? So if she went to, let's say, like, if she studied in the UK or the US, then you sort of know what to expect. So then there isn't a particular like transactional value. At the same time, I do think that, you know, a girl in her 20s or whatever, right, she doesn't want to be with a bum, right? Like a guy who doesn't do anything,
Yeah.
and a guy who's doesn't have anything. So I also respect the fact that, you know, because a lot of the guys, they would complain, oh, girls only want like guys who are wealthy. Well, I'm like, no, most of the girls just want a guy who's ambitious, who's doing something, and who takes actions, who's not lazy, and that's it. And hence, if you're not doing anything and you're just complaining, well, then it's a you problem, right? But so you do a lot of filtering before the first dates. As you can see, sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I think you do feel transactional at that point. At the same time, I think, you know, sometimes guys just take advantage of that, right? Like, let's be realistic. They I guess you could, they buy the, just not the love, but I would say the presence of girls next to them, just because they want this attention. I'm not interested in that. I'm good. I'd rather be alone rather than pay for someone's attention and love.
Do you believe there can be a successful relationship between people from two different financial backgrounds?
I think there can be, but it's just much harder. I think it's definitely way harder, and I think the background can be different, but where you are right now, I think, is also very important, right? For example, I know a situation where a guy, you know, his family was not, you know, let's say privileged. At the same time, he got successful quite early, you know, building various tech startups. And then he got married to a woman that, you know, came from massive privilege. So I think that could be sort of a path where, you know, your background doesn't define who you are, just because it matters what you do now.
So in 2024, everybody's debating about gender roles.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult because I feel like our generation is the first one who's truly experiencing all of those problems.
Yeah.
Because obviously feminism has brought us to wonderful places, and women now have an opportunity to work. But because of that, you don't really understand what are the standard gender roles anymore.
Yeah.
And what is the ideal relationship for you?
I don't see myself in a relationship where I'm not the main provider for the family, just because I know that career is very important to me, and my goals are very important to me. So I think I will be the main provider, and I know there are plenty of girls that, you know, want to work, want to provide for the family, and I want my girlfriend, my partner, my wife to work and to do whatever she's interested in, right? Just because I do believe, you know, she might be great in fashion and arts and whatever the field is. I wouldn't want my wife to be in the same field where I am, just because I think I've seen, I didn't have it myself, but I've seen that it creates competition, and I don't want to compete with my wife. That's kind of weird. But at the same time, you know, now I am the guy who would open the door for the girl, who would hold the hand, who would, you know, do all of the, I guess, common things, the so-called gentleman, just because this was the way I was brought up. And this is how my dad would treat my mother. This is how I saw sort of is the right way to treat a woman, just because, yeah, this is just the way I was brought up. I don't know if it's right or wrong. There are plenty of people who would say otherwise, but in my relationship, I would like things to be kept this way.
Girls, this is how he wants it to be, so his DMs are unfortunately not open right now, but I'm convincing him to open his Instagram so you can all admire his pictures.
Create a secret handshake. Well, if it's a secret, how is it going to be on camera?
Guys, don't watch.
Yeah.
All right.
Close your eyes.
Do you have any ideas for secret
Yeah,
handshakes?
of course. So we do this. We do. Okay, I got. So give me this. No, actually, this. High five here, and then the pinky touch.
Oh my god, is this pinky broken?
Yeah.
And this pinky is broken too.
Exactly. There you go. The secret. So
That's the secret.
high five, pinky touch. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Now we have a secret handshake. What are you more afraid of, failure or success? Why?
Ooh. I think failure, for sure. I think I get the question in regards to being afraid of success, but I think in regards to failure, it's just there's so much eyes on you and so much pressure, and everybody, we started this conversation was being the fact that, hey, Vlad has done this, Vlad has done this, Vlad has achieved so many great things, although he's just 24. Well, yes. Well, now imagine I fail. It's kind of like, yo, you tried all of this and you failed, and it does wake me up sometimes, especially when things are not going smooth, and like startup world, they're not going smooth a lot of the times. So yeah, that's what I'm afraid of more, but it's still, the process is great, even if I fail, this life is amazing, and I get the opportunity to just work with the smartest people and learn a lot of things. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure you will not fail, but I think you're the type of person, even when you have failures, you will look at them as lessons learned. Therefore, it will not be a failure.
Yeah, hopefully.
But on a broader perspective, I'm sure you will have shitloads of success, bro.
Thank you.
Out of all of my friends, I have no doubts about you. I'm very, not worried.
Thank you. What about you? What
Oh,
are you?
dude, I've never been scared of success. What the fuck does it even mean? Oh, I'm so scared I'll be I understand, the philosophical part of
Yeah.
it, the pressure. But, oh my god, I'm so scared of failure, and I'm definitely not scared of success.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely.
But also, I think it's important in the moment to acknowledge how far you've already come, because I think the thing about success is that in the moment you feel like you never have it, because you're always chasing the next thing.
Absolutely, and I think most of the time you're always, if you're raising the bar all the time, there's always someone more successful, better, whatever, and because of that you're like, well, I still haven't achieved anything. And I think I've heard this quote somewhere that the goals that you set yourself 4 or 5 years ago were achieved already, right? And are you happy now? Since previously you said those goals will make you happy. Well, if you're not happy now, are you gonna be happy when you achieve this new set of goals? Therefore, you should live in the moment, and as they say, it's not about the goal, it's about the journey. So yeah.
Why did your parents choose to send you to an international school?
Well, so initially I started off in a typical Ukrainian school. I was in top of the class in my Ukrainian school, and then my parents were like, okay, let's complicate things and let's move him to an international school in Kiev. And I think it was just because they were anticipating that I would go study worldwide, right, internationally. I think first and foremost to learn English, even though I did have tutors, etc. But when I came to PSI in 7th grade, oh man, I didn't speak. I thought I spoke well, but I wasn't. It was really bad.
When I came to KIS for the first time, they asked me in what grade I am in English, and I couldn't answer that question.
Oh no.
And prior to that, my parents were sending me to tutors for 10 years, and they were like, I think she doesn't speak English.
Well, I didn't have that, but it was pretty bad as well. Well, I was on the assumption that I'm the best, because I used to be the best in my previous school, and I wouldn't necessarily try my hardest, I think. And then once I got sent to the principal, was like, yo, you have to try better. You're gonna be sent to the English as a secondary language course. It was pretty bad, but then in like 3-4 years, it got way better.
Before you moved to PSI, were you already aware of your privilege?
Yeah, so I think before I moved to PSI, I was like in a Ukrainian school, and I was aware of the privilege just because in Ukrainian school, it was a public school, right? And I was like, okay, you know, I'm kind of, I do have the privilege. But then when I moved to PSI, like I remember talking to someone, and I realized that I do have privilege, but you know, there's always a person who's got more privilege than you, let's say. And then the same thing happened when I moved to the UK, because we had I think Princess of Belgium in our school, and I was like, okay, you know, we're not even competing there just because it doesn't matter. But yeah, I was always aware of the privilege ever since maybe the age of like 10. I was like, we're good, but there's always probably someone above you, but you do have to acknowledge that there are plenty of people below, unfortunately.
Did you always know that you're going to study abroad?
I think from the age of like 12, 13, it started off from my parents basically talking to their friends, and their kids got sent internationally. And then I remember reading a book. I think it was by Boris Akunin. It's a Russian writer, and basically one of the characters in the book is Fandorin, and he used to study in MIT. And this guy is like protagonist in the book. And I found out about MIT when I was like 12, and I was like, damn, I don't know what MIT is. It's like Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's in Boston. And I was like, damn, I do want to study there. I didn't end up going to MIT, not good enough, but I think...
Yeah, just London School of Economics, guys.
Well, not quite MIT, but LSE is great as well. But nevertheless, yeah, I think around the age of 12, 13, I was like, okay, I'm going to study abroad. I went to PSI, 4 years there, and then I did my high school in the UK. So to go to PSI, it was my parents' decision to the international school in Kiev, but to move abroad to England was sort of my decision, because I realized that, well, okay, I need to increase my chances of getting into the best uni I can, and moving abroad seemed like a logical next step. So we were looking through a bunch of boarding schools, and then I did go to one of them in the UK, Bromsgrove School. And I remember on my first day when I arrived there, I sat in this small room. It was me and another guy in the room, so basically two of us. The bathroom was public, so like we didn't have like a shower or anything. And I remember sitting there, and I was like, damn, why did I make this choice? Why did I stay in Kiev? Because I had, you know, all my friends in Kiev, my family, everything. And I was pretty upset for like first few days, but then it got way better. And now I'm beyond grateful for having, well, firstly, the opportunity to go to international school, and then to move abroad. And I think just, grateful for the opportunities that I had. And so thank you, my parents.
Shout out to Vlad's parents, by the way. Also, fun fact, my middle sister went to the same boarding school as Vlad. I think that's how we bonded initially.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah. So in what environment did you feel more comfortable? In your public school, or when you were among people who had similar privileges?
I kind of can adjust based on the environment. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I did adjust, but I felt more comfortable in, I think, in PSI and in Bromsgrove. And I think, you know, it comes down to now, I don't think I talked to anyone from my first school. Oh, I mean, only a good friend of ours, but that's it. So only one person, and that's because she went to Kiev International School as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had similar backgrounds, that's why you guys stick together pretty much.
Exactly, yeah.
So you said you realized that you were privileged around 10.
Yeah.
Did something happen around that age?
No, I think this is what I remember. I remember like bringing toys to the class. Like video games, right? I think it was PSP or whatever. And I remember being in a situation where most of the people didn't have it, and they would they would ask about it. They would, hey, can I play, whatever. And then it sort of came to the idea that, oh wait, I have it, other people don't. I have certain other things, other people don't. Well, I guess I know why.
Talking about boarding school, tell me, how was that experience? Because you were saying you were surrounded by so many privileged kids, and I remember my sister was telling me like crazy story about Bromsgrove.
Yeah, so Bromsgrove is a great school because they sort of have two main focuses. The first focus is academia. I think it's like top 5 or top 10 IB schools in the UK or maybe even the world.
Can you explain what's IB for
so
people
IB
who
is
don't know?
International Baccalaureate. It's one of the programs similar to like AP in the US or A levels in the UK. So IB is, I think, Swiss, or it's, let's say, internationally recognized. And the way that it works, that in high school you select 6 subjects that you're gonna study over the course of 2 years, 3 high level and 3 like just standard level. So I went there primary for the academia, but at the same time they're also one of the schools that they heavily invest into sports. So they were, recognized both for the academia and the sports. And just the boarding experience is, well, you get to live in a dorm, right? It's as I said, like 2x2 room. We had I think 40 or 50 boys from 11th grade living in the same building, and that's it, no one else. I think even our supervisors were living in another building close by. So we just had like plenty of fun, good stories. But at the same time, due to the fact that, academia is like the key, it basically, you don't have much time to do anything, right? You wake up, you go to study. When you're not studying like actively in class, you're probably doing homework or preparing for your exams. Then you need to do some activities like sports, and that's pretty much it, right? And there is, basically fixed time slots for everything. Like you have to go to sleep. I mean, nobody actually like forces you to go to sleep at 11, but like you have to be in your rooms at 11. You have to wake up at 7. I think from, let's say, 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. it's studying time, whatever. So you don't have time to have fun, let's say, right? Like a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends that stayed in Kiev, they would post on Instagram that, hey, we're going to this party. They would go, elsewhere. And I was like, well, it's Friday, I'm studying.
Did you feel FOMO?
I did, yeah. I did a lot of FOMO, yeah. It was also because I was still close with a bunch of my friends from PSI, and because I left in 10th grade. And they would call me sometimes from the parties or whatever. And I'm like, well, good for you guys, enjoy. And then in terms of what's really funny as well, in terms of interactions with girls, so Bromsgrove is a mixed gender school, just because I think there are many boarding schools in the UK that are either for girls or for boys. I think Eton College or Harrow School, these are like the big top-notch schools in the UK that are boys only. I didn't really want to do that. I wasn't up for that. But in terms of like interaction with girls, so there used to be a 6-inch rule, meaning you can only approach a girl, but there should be a distance of 6 inches. So basically, if you hug a girl, well, technically you shouldn't. It's not allowed by the school laws. And we used to have teachers that, would tell us off that, hey, no hugging.
What would happen if they would see you hugging somebody?
Well, the worst, they would most likely like tell you off, but like if you engage into like kissing or anything else, oh man, people got suspended.
Really?
Yeah, not for kissing. They were having sex on the premises. I don't think that's a smart move, to be honest.
Do you feel like the best benefit of boarding schools is networking?
I think network is probably one of the best things, but also they know how to send students to good unis. But I think mainly the purpose is the network, and also that if you go to a boarding school, you're going to be in a good college.
So tell me, how does it help being in boarding school?
So firstly is the fact that you're in this boarding school. They send a lot of kids to Oxbridge, which is Oxford and Cambridge, LSE, UCL, Imperial, basically the top unis in London, in the UK. And this is just a brand, basically, that builds reputation. Secondly is the teachers. The teachers are just like really high quality in terms of the academia. And then, so I think these two factors play a major role. And then they really know how to either write, what is it called? Basically the statement for the unis. And they, you know, in our, I think starting from year 12, so basically 11th grade, we had classes which we would attend that would prepare us for uni applications.
I think what your parents and you did was the smartest thing,
Yeah.
to go to international school first and then to go to boarding school,
Yeah.
because out of all of our friends, the ones who went to boarding schools got into the best schools.
Yeah, I think that was honestly probably the best decision, and I would do the same with my kids if, you know, if I have the chance, just because they, it basically, you know how they say don't be the smartest kid in the room, because if you are the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So my parents would always level up, increase the bar.
So how was your application process to colleges? Tell us about it.
I graduated in 2018, so the summer before that, I went to the US for my SAT prep. And I really wanted to, as I said, you know, the first time I found out about international unis was through MIT. So I was like, man, I really want to go to MIT. Let's see what's up. So I went to Boston and a few other unis in East Coast. And I really loved MIT. I did not like Harvard, like at all. I liked some of the unis in New York, like NYU, Columbia. And then I went back and I was speaking to my dad. And my dad was hesitant about sending me to the US. And obviously, because the US is just way more expensive than the UK. So
Twice, right?
twice or three times. So the unis in the UK are like 20, 30K, whilst
Really?
yeah, they're way cheaper. It's crazy per year. Whilst in the US it's like 100K, well, close to.
Like 70 to 90. yeah.
Exactly. And so my dad, I remember he went to QS rankings, best unis in the world in terms of.
Oh my God, parents love doing that. It's their
all
most
the
toxic
time, all
trait.
the time. And then so he went there, and he's like the best unis that are above LSE in the world in terms of econ were Stanford and Harvard. And my dad's like, I'm only gonna send you to the US if you get into Stanford and Harvard.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, maybe later for masters, but for bachelor, it's just going to be difficult. And I talked to my college counselor in Bromsgrove, and she straight up told me that, look, we never had kids. We had plenty of people that applied to those colleges, but they didn't get in. And we assumed that this is because it's a private school in the UK, and it's just way more difficult, you know, for other purposes and etc. So they pretty much advised me to focus on the UK and get into the best unis in the UK. So yeah, I just focused on LSE, did all the applications, and I think in December I got a letter saying that I got accepted. But then the way that it works in the UK, the offers are conditional, so you have to meet certain grades. So then I did my exams in May. And then I think July 3rd or 4th, I got my grades back and I got in.
I actually remember when you got in. It was right after my birthday, and I
Yeah.
was in Japan already. And you told me that you got accepted, and I was so happy for you.
Yeah, it was a good day. Yeah, that was fun.
So what was your major in LSE?
So I did economics and management, but I think it's called Bachelor of Science in Management. And the reason why I went for that course is because you can select multiple subjects. So for example, some people would go heavy into finance, others into marketing. And what I did, well, I went really deep into math.
Interesting. So it sounds like if you guys are looking for a man in finance with the trust fund and blue eyes, this is the guy. So what's the 5-year plan?
So I think now is the reason why you join startups and you try building one yourself early is so that you fuck up and you fail, and then you fail again and again. And then at some point you're gonna be way better in building startups, because you can read plenty of books, but the best learning and the best way to learn is by actually doing whatever you're doing. Hence, I think the end game, and in terms of like the actual plan, would be to move to the US.
To Boston, convince him, guys.
Maybe to Boston, and then start building. I mean, we'll see where the current startup takes us. For now, I'm focused on this, and I'll be there in the next 2 to 3 years. I hope. You know,
I'm waiting for you.
Things don't always go to plan, but I think the best things historically have been created in the US. So the plan would be to move to the US in 2-3 years, and then start just, you know, build. Right now I'm focused on building connection, building the network, building the skills, getting to know a crazy amount of people and learning from them. Just because then the role of a sort of CEO or whatever of a startup is just hiring people smarter than you, get capital from people richer than you, and fulfill the needs of people that are you know, basically there for you. So you just do all of those things, and then you're gonna have a great startup.
Who would you want to see next on our show? Do you have any recommendations for us?
Yes, I do actually. Well, I think there is the requested Stad guy who should be coming.
Everybody's calling Stad guy. Stad guy, respond to us.
Yeah, honestly. And then a bunch of F1 drivers. Come on. This is like, yo, Charles, everyone else, we know you're privileged, so come join.
And the last question, the most important, is are you happy?
I am. I think shit happens, and I think shit happens most of the time. And just in life, you have to learn to deal with problems, because they will always come and go. But I think I've heard this today actually. You know, whatever happens to you, let's say today, hopefully it's not something major, let's say a fuck up in work or wherever, just think about it, that there are people that are, you know, let's say they lost a loved one, or they lost something that they loved, or whatever happens, and realize that they would love to be in your position, right? Or just, you know, what helps me a lot is there have been times where I've been down, and I remember writing a note where I'm like, damn, I would love things to be just okay, you know, just okay, nothing to complain, nothing to cheer about. And because of that, I'm like, yeah, everything's great. You know, whatever shit happens, it's okay. It could be worse, it could be better, but I am happy.
I'm glad. Well, I hope you will always be happy.
Thank you.
Unless shit happens.
Shit always happens.
Yeah, but at least things are better when you have friends like this.
For sure.
Anyways, thank you so much for being a part of this. It was so awesome to finally have a friend join us here. So to more of my friends, guys, please join us.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah,
thank
still
you.
I have no idea what I'm doing here, but thank you.
So guys, this is the guest which you witnessed. I hope you got to witness how sincere, authentic, smart, amazing, cool, hot, fascinating he is, and you give him a follow. And moreover, I'm just glad that I had my first friend ever on this production.
I'm really honored. Like I can't. When the first time you sent me an invite, I thought it's a joke, and then I was like, okay, actually it's not a joke, so maybe I should think about it, and then you know the rest. But I'm really honored to be here, honestly. Finish.
Bye guys, like, subscribe, follow both of us, and obviously Privilege Productions. Bye guys.
Peace. Come to Dubai Habibi.